So today's Virus Cast features Steve Scott, and I called Steve to ask him some questions about the captain of the Teddy Roosevelt that was summarily terminated, the comments by the acting Secretary of the Navy, and the fifth principle of human performance, which is how leaders react matters. Well, I had to call you because I'm so curious. So you're by far the best person to call for this anyway. Because, well, I mean, you and I have never seen the world in the same place politically, but that's never stopped us from anything. But this whole activity around the Teddy Roosevelt, around Brett Crozier getting summarily ousted, was really heightened by that really amazing LinkedIn post you made, which I don't really read LinkedIn, but I caught that one and I couldn't agree more with you. And we know the fifth principle of human performance is, how leaders react matter. We're in the middle of this right now. What are you thinking? And the reason I asked that, and then I promise there's a question at this, I promise I'll shut up, is because you put that cool statement out, and then somebody tried to hate fill you with some kind of like, well, you've never served before, you have no idea what this is like. And you so beautifully and subtly said, no, I have an entire career in the military. Whammo bammo, and then you took off. What are you thinking?
It's really interesting to me, Todd, that the military is an organization that really preaches welfare of the troops as this hugely important value that they're to live by. But behind that is this overarching thing about readiness. And so at the unit level, at the small unit level, they talk a lot about taking care of the troops, but the brass at the Pentagon and DC are all about readiness, and they don't want to hear any bad news that puts a black eye or tends to make readiness look bad. And, to me, this is just a perfect symptom of that. Here's a guy who, Captain Crozier, who, he's a 28-year Navy man, Annapolis graduate. He rose to the rank of captain, was given command of a nuclear aircraft carrier with a 5,000-person crew. You got to believe he understands how the chain of command works, and you got to believe he has lived by it throughout his career, or he would not have gotten to where he was. So, if you believe that, then you have to believe that he was screaming at the chain of command that I need help here. I need help for my troops. And he was getting stonewalled because you've got brass that don't want to hear anything about we've got an aircraft carrier that's not ready to, do its mission. And at the same time, you've got this administration that wants to downplay any negative stories about the coronavirus pandemic in general. And I think those two things together, put this guy who's the acting Secretary of the Navy in a position where he just said, hey, the easiest thing for me to do is just fire this guy. And I just think it sends a horrible message to other commanders who absolutely will find themselves in similar situations in the coming days and weeks, about how well they're going to be able to take care of their troops, how much noise they're going to be able to make when they're not getting the help they need. And, this just has huge implications for the whole of the military. And it's just a horrible example of leadership.
And it's interesting that Maudley, the acting Secretary of the Navy, came out today and called Brett, the
called
captain,
him stupid,
either too stupid or too naive.
Yes.
And the idea then they follow that up and say, well, we hope this doesn't create a chilling effect. I mean, Amy Edmondson talks about psychological safety. If the big boss calls you stupid, I would suggest psychological safety's gone.
Absolutely. I promise you, every other commander in the military who's, thinking that this is going on in their ranks is really having second thoughts about how hard they can raise the alarm, or how loudly they can raise the alarm, how hard they can push the panic buttons. And it's going to, if you that's going to do more to damage readiness than anything else. If these commanders are not allowed to say, I've got people sick and I need help, then it's just going to propagate within their ranks. And, God forbid we ever did need them, they're going to find out that, they're going to be surprised that we've got all these units out here that have been just eaten up by this pandemic, and we didn't know about it because the commanders don't have that psychological safety, don't have that feel like they have the ability to bring the attention that's required to it.
So what can we learn from this? What's the lesson it's trying to teach us?
Oh, man, you can't be afraid of bad news. You can't put people in a position where they're afraid to give you bad news. And I also think there's probably one of the responses by the acting Secretary of the Navy and the Secretary of Defense was, we were already doing all the right things to take care of the situation. He didn't need to do this. He just raised a panic. Well, if they were already doing all the right things, apparently these weren't communicated to the right people. So I think there's a lesson to learn about, communications during these times also. But the overarching thing to learn from this is you've got to put people in a position where they are very comfortable bringing bad news to you if you want to be able to, address it in a timely manner and create that psychological safety in the organization that allows people to raise problems so that they can be addressed. Otherwise, those problems remain hidden. And, what would happen if a week or 2 weeks from now we suddenly had to have that aircraft carrier go to Taiwan for some reason, and all of a sudden then they find out that half the crew is too sick to do their jobs. That would be a way worse situation. So you as a leader, you've got to make sure your people are comfortable bringing you bad news, and that's where your response matters. And your response can't be to, shoot the messenger.
I knew you would make this make sense to me. Thank you.